Hey kids, welcome to Lesson 7, Loops Practice. This lesson is really going to run down a bunch of little skill and drill practice loop problems, kids. A lot of them are pretty fun, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. Do this. The program prints out the numbers 0 through 9 to the console. Run the program, see how it works. The speed slider has been made to run more slowly so you can watch how it works. Edit the program to print the numbers 0 to 99. You can turn the speed slider all the way up. Let's take a look at our code here. We have a variable counter. It's set to 0. We have a while loop while the counter is less than 10. We are going to print off a counter, which is just this number here. Every time through the loop, we're going to add 1 to it. And once we get to 10, we should stop. This one should print 0 to 9 because we're not equal to 10. I'm going to slide this all the way up, kids. Hit run. You can see our numbers there, 0 through 9. Well, how would we change this to get to 99? Well, kids, if we're going 0 to 9 and 10, I bet you if we just add another 0 and 0 to 100, let's see if that works. Well, there's all my numbers, kids. You can see down here we printed all the way off from 0 to 100. That's how we did it, just by changing the counter number. I think that's all code.org wants for this one. Let's see if they want anything else. No. You can write counter plus plus instead of counter equal counter plus 1. You read it as counter plus plus. Do this. The program prints the word hello to the console 10 times. Run the program to see how it works. The speed slider has been made to run more slowly so you can watch how it works. Edit the program so we can print hello 100 times. Kids, this code looks just like the one before. We have a variable counter set to 0. We have our while loop, and the counter is set to 0. So while it's less than 10, we're going to print off hello. Every time we go through the loop, we're going to add 1. And we're going to do that by saying counter plus plus. If I run this, I should get hello 9 times. Wow, kids, at this rate, we're going to be here forever. I'm not even sure what number we're on. Oh, we're on 4, 5, 6. Is anybody still awake out there, kids? And there we are. We are at 10. It printed it 10 times because we were going 0 to 9, even though it's less than 10. Because we start at 0, kids. So just keep that in mind. If we wanted to print it 100 times, well, kids, how do we do that? We just add another 0 right here. Hit run. Let's reset this, kids. Let's turn this speed up. Let's go now. And we should have got it to print 100 times. You can see our counter here is 100. So every time we went through, we just added another to it. Counter plus plus, kids. We use this in a lot of languages. Just make sure you know it. I think that's all code.org wants. Let's see if they want anything else. Nope. This program simulates flipping 10 coins. On each loop, it appends another random 0 or 1 to a list. You'll need to add code to simulate rolling 10 dice. That means appending 10 random numbers between 1 and 6 to a list. Run the program to see how it works. Add code in the spaces to indicate to generate 10 random numbers between 1 and 6. This will simulate rolling 10 dice. Use the variables and list provided to you. Feel free to copy the patterns from the list, from the code to the roll dice. Well, this doesn't sound too bad, kids. Let's take a look here. We have our variable counter set to 0. We have a variable coin flips, which is a list, which is set to empty. We have a while counter here. As long as it's less than 10, we're going to append item coin flips with a random number between 0 and 1. Then we're going to increase the counter every time we go through. So every time it counts, it's just going to go 0 or 1. Then we're going to console.log it. Here's 10 random flips. And then we're printing off coin flips right there. We have counter 2, which isn't set to anything yet. That's set to 0. Dice rolls, which there's nothing in it. Looks like we have a whole bunch of space to write some stuff here. And then here's 10 random dice rolls. And then we're going to print off the dice rolls right there. Let's run this code, kids, and see what happens real quick. If you see, we got 10 random flips, and it just printed off ones or zeros. And kids, we could add to this code, and I'm sure we are down the road, to equate those ones and zeros to heads and tails. And we can actually keep track of how many heads or tails we flipped. The code here is going to be pretty similar, kids. The dice roller or the coin flips is going to be the same thing, except keeping track of zeros and ones, heads and tails. We're going to keep track of the sides of a die, 1 through 6, kids. And if you look, we're just going to keep the counters here and the dice rolls the same. Really what we need to do is a loop. And it's going to be the same one as above, a while. And this one's going to be counter 2 is less than 10. We want to keep doing something. And what do we want to keep doing? Well, we want to append items. And remember what we do, kids. What list do we want to do? We want to do this dice rolls list. So dice rolls. And what we want to do is we want to add to that list a random number, right, kids? And above, it was a random number between 1 and 0. And this one, we can just do a random number. And this time, we're just going to do it between 1 and 6. Because kids, that's how many numbers are on a dice. So instead of the last one where we did 0 and 1, we're just adding a couple more numbers, kids. Don't overthink it. What's another important part of a counter? Well, we have to progress up through the counter. So as we go, we have to add to the counter every time we count or progress through it. Don't forget your curly Q that I started there. Now, when I hit run, I should get a random number printed off between 1 and 6 for 10 rolls. Well, let's see what happens, kids. Kids, here's an important reason why you should check your spelling here. Look, we're not getting anything printed off down here. Why not? Well, I'm adding to my counter up here. It reaches 10 over here. It's not going to go anymore. Remember, kids, I called this counter 2. You need 2 different variables for this. So just be careful when you're doing this stuff. When I reset and run, now you can see I got random numbers here. These are my dice rolls and my coin flips. Kids, just remember, when you're making multiple variables, make sure you're always calling the correct one. I think that's all code.org wants for this one. Let's move on. In JavaScript, a for loop is a shorter way of writing a while loop. You'll recognize that it has the same 3 parts. Create a variable and assign a starting value. Check its value every time through the loop. Change the value of the variable. We're going to do this. I'll read the program and run it, see how it works. So change the program so it prints the number 0 to 99. You can turn this speed slider all the way up. Looks like we have a little for loop down here. I is set to 0. As long as I is less than 10, we are going to increase by 1. Kids, if you remember in class, even though it's all written on one line, we are going to read it like a while loop. That means we start with our initial number, we progress through the loop, we do whatever it says to do, print it off, whatever it is, then we add to the counter. So we go first, second, third, fourth. Just keep those steps in mind, kids, because if you just go all the way down and then print it off, you're going to get a completely different answer. So be careful of that, kids. If I run this, I should get 10 printed down here. Oh, we're going to take forever here, kids. There we go. We got 0 through 9 because we start at 0 and we go up to 10. And if we wanted to go up to 100 or 99, we go to 100. Reset run. Well, there's all my numbers, kids. Just like a while loop, except it's all in one line. Remember to read it like a while loop. And that's all code.org ones. Let's move on. Your for loop doesn't need to count up by 1. You can update your variable however you like. Do this, run the program, and read the code to understand how it works. Change the program so that it displays the even numbers between 0 and 100. But just understand, kids, this is saying the same thing there. So every time I goes, it's just going to add 3 to the count. This should go 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, and that should be it, kids. Let's see if I'm right. Let's go a little faster here. Yep, there's all my numbers like that. Now to do even numbers, kids, well, we can just go up by 2. So we'll reset run, and you see we have all our even numbers. I think that's all code.org wanted for this one. Let's see if they want anything else. You can use the same for loop to do multiple things. This program creates 2 lists of 10 random coin flips. Do this, run the program, read the code to understand how it works. Update the program to fill the 3rd list of random coin flips. You do not need to add another for loop. Let's take a look at our code here first. We have 3 variables, flips 1, 2, and 3. These are lists set to empty. We have a for loop here. And it says as long as the variable I is less than 10, we're going to keep progressing through our loop. We're appending items. To flip 1 is going to be a random number between 0 and 1. Flip 2, 0 and 1. And then we have some display things down here, and it looks like flips 1, and then we're calling to our flips variable, flips 2, calling to our flips variable, and flips 3, calling to our 3rd flips variable. Kids, I think the only thing we need to do to this is just append another item in. So if we go append item, in this one, we are going to do a flips 3, a random number here. Same thing as before, 0 and 1, and don't forget your semicolon. That should, kids, get us to 3 random flips. Let's see if I'm right. Speed this up a little more. There you go. Flip 1, flip 2, flip 3, and 10 flips for each kid. So we didn't have to add another loop. We could use the same counters. We're just running another variation within it. Pretty neat if you ask me, kids. I think that's all code.org wanted. Let's move on to our next one. By combining the iterator variable, and remember, kids, iterator is just steps, with strings, for example, label plus I, you can change the properties of many screen elements all at once. Read the code carefully to understand how the I variable is being used inside each loop. Update the program so that when you click on the button, it randomly resizes each word. Well, let's take a look at our code here. We have on the event, the randomized button is clicked here. We're going to run a for loop. I is going to run as long as it's less than 4. And what we're going to do is we're going to set the property label plus I, and then we're going to change the color, the RGB, from a random number between 0 and 255. Kids, if you remember this goes all the way back to binary, how we count, and 256, if you remember, that is the maximum number, so 255 is the number we use for that. Basically, all this is saying is go to the label here and change it to a random color, and that's all that should happen. Let's randomize it and see if we get those different colors. Increase this up here. And you can see, kids, it's like a rave in my sentences. And while that's very fun, kids, that's really not doing what we want it to do. What we want it to do is to resize the words, right? Well, kids, this is actually pretty easy here. If we go ahead and look at our code, we don't have to change the label here. We're not progressing through. What we do want to change is not the text color. Well, kids, if we go over to our show blocks right here, you can see one of them is going to be font. Maybe. Font size, there it is. And in this one, we are going to do a random number for our font. So let's do a random number. And this time, let's go between, I don't know, 20 and 72. That means anytime I hit randomize now, the size should get bigger and bigger. Let's run it. Whee! Look at that, kids. That's so fun. All right, let's say we want to take this a step further, kids. What if we wanted to add the color back to it? Well, we can go back to set property here, and we're going to do the same thing. We're still doing the label, and we are still increasing it based off of I. This time, we want to do text color like before, and we want a random number. And we need a random number for all three, kids, because it's RGB. So we have to put RGB, random number. This is between 0 and 255. RGB. Oops, we got to put a parenthesis in there because that's what we're doing. And then we have to do a couple more random numbers here. This is going to be between 0 and 255. And one more. 0, 255. And I think we need a semicolon there. And, ooh, looks like we're missing something here, kids. Probably a, oh, we're going to need one more set of parentheses to end that all. Woo! A lot of parentheses. Now when I reset and run here, and I hit randomized, so I get different colors and sizes, kids. So again, this is a way I can reuse label, aka my variable counter, and set it between multiple things, color and size. Pretty cool if you ask me, kids. I think that's it for this one. Let's move on to our last one. Kids, don't freak out. This one ain't bad. By combining the iterator variable I with strings, for example, dice plus I in the program below, you can change the properties of many Scream elements all at once. We have it do this. The program is supposed to roll 20 dice, but it has several things that need to be improved. Make it roll all 20 dice. Add code so it calculates a number of even rolls, and update the code so only even rolls get a white border. Woo. And you can see here, kids, when it rolls, even should get a square, and we're going to add those up. We have some code here on the event roll button is clicked. We're going to create a new variable odd, which is 0, and a for loop. While I is less than 10, we're going to roll a random number between 1 and 6. We're going to set the property dice I with text and roll border there. We have an if statement down here. If roll equals 1 and roll equals 3 and roll equals 5, we're going to add to the odds counter. Let's run and see what the program does. I think it's only going to do stuff with odds. And well, it's not running all the times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's only running 10 times. So we got that one there. That one should be pretty easy to do. Next thing we have to do really is create a new variable for evens and keep track of that one. Well, let's come up here, kids. I am going to start trying to comment this out a little here because this is going to get a little messy. Comment // this is going to be a variable to track odd. And then we want to do a variable to track even. And this is just going to be a variable even, and we're going to set this equal to 0, kids, just like we have before. And if you look up here, we have our for loop right here. And we have an if loop. This is doing odd rolls. And what we really want to do is we want to do even rolls too, kids. And where are we going to put that? Well, let's come down here. And let's do even rolls. And we're going to do just another if counter here, kids. And really what's happening up here? Well, what it's saying is if you pick any of the odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, since there's only 6 numbers, we can kind of code around this and just put the odd number. So we can do the same thing with the even. That means if roll equal, remember equal are seeing if they're the same quantity. One equal sign is setting it equal to something. So we have 2. And on this one, you're probably wondering, where is this up, double lines? Well, if you go to your actual \, that's the key above the enter, you hold the shift down, that's actually how you get it. So it's above the enter key, hold the shift, same as the /, that's where we're at. This one is going to be roll equal 4. And then roll equal 6 on this one. And the parentheses, and we have a curly Q, we have to start. And on this one, if that happens, we're just going to do even plus. And kids, I know if I have one double parenthesis, I'm going to have another one there. And it's even plus, kids, we always need a semicolon. Remember, semicolons are like your period. Let's roll some numbers here. You can see they're always coming up with this little white border, right? And what we can actually do is we can actually change this border width here. And really, we can just take this border width for odd here, and we can set this to the even one because we really want it for the even. So we're just going to take this and really just place this down here. And really, all we did, kids, was just take the border width there and change it down here. Speaking of that, we also need to go up to 20, so we have to change that to 20. Now, kids, if we're setting it to something on one side, we have to set it to another way on the other side, right? That's an if-else statement here. So we're going to do our else statement. We're going to do our curly Q else like that. And we are going to set the property. Which property? Well, we're going to do dice. And we're just doing it like above, dice I. And we are doing border width. And we're going to set this to 0 on this one. That means, I think we have one too many curly Q's here. That means if it is an even, we're getting a border on it. If it's not an even, then we're not getting anything on it. And then we are printing the total number of information here. And right now it's only printing odds. And we need the total number of evens too. So we need to concatenate. And we need to put evens like that. And I think that's all. I think there's a little curly Q there. So we're good there. Whoop. I think I spelled that wrong, kids. Even. Woo. I think I spelled it wrong the whole time. How did I set this up here, kids? EVEN. If roll. EVEN. EVEN. How do we declare it up there, kids? EVEN. So it's EVEN. Like that. Just make sure you get your spelling right with everything down there. I think this is it, kids. Let's reset run. Ooh, 10 and 10. Looks like I should go play the lottery, kids. Roll it again. Ooh, that's a little better. Not so split there. And you can see every time we roll it, evens are getting the white border, and we're keeping track of that. And all we really did was just steal that code from the odd and moved it down, kids. Looking back, I think that's everything we had to do for this. We roll 20 times, we calculate the number of evens, and the code marks whatever an even roll was. I think that's everything code.org wanted. And well, that's the last of our lessons, kids. Hopefully you found this video helpful in working through loops. As always, if you have any questions, you can come see me, kids. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next video. See you later, kids. Bye, bye, bye.